How did we do? Of course, Moore County won. We had a little side bet going, and we won. But we were very, very close on the amount of water pumped. I think I was at 10 inches, right at a little above or below. Danny and Phil pumped a little bit more water than we did. We had a hail right before tassel that I think that dinged us a little bit, that we weren't quite able to get our 200 bushels per acre. Other than that, I think we would have achieved our goal there. But we felt like we were pretty successful the first year. We did have some test plots within these fields that did exceed the 200 bushel yield goal. I think the highest one in our plot was 204, 205, something like that. And we planned hopefully on exceeding that. Oh, one of the things I want to add, none of these were Drought 1 hybrids. These are all hybrids that are available now. So we didn't get any help from any. Of course, we have several good hybrids that have drought tolerance, but none of these. I want to make sure that people understood that these aren't any of the new Drought 1 tolerant hybrids. But we will have some to work with for next year. Return on investment. I can't speak for Danny, and I think one of the reasons why Danny's was, even though he yielded a little bit less than I did, his irrigation costs over, and even though he pumped more water than we did in Moore County, his irrigation costs are considerably less than ours. I think he runs on electricity. Ours, I can speak for ours in that we saved our input costs on the 4 inputs that I'd identified: fertilizer, pumping costs, seed costs, and harvest was $100, a little over $100 less than our traditional, and I hate to say traditional, but the corn that traditional corn that we've grown on the rest of the farm. So that was quite a bit of savings. Fields, and I can't fully address the issues that would happen on fields, but we will get that information out. So because we want to make sure and do a very good job on quantifying, and that everybody understands exactly what went on every plot. So I'm not going to even talk about fields. What's next? Obviously, we want to continue the project. This is just the first year. Next year is going to be a lot more challenging with the dry conditions that we've seen over the winter. Obviously, that could change also, but we're going to continue on with the project. We plan to move to try to get 6 cooperators. There's currently 3. We're seeking funding from both the NRCS and Texas Water Development Board for the expansion. And as I've also stated before, the Board of Directors is committed to expanding the program with or without any outside funding. One of the things that we'll continue to do is, if we can't get any help, is provide all the tools necessary for any cooperator. And that includes irrigation, scheduling, management. Now, I'm not saying that we have total say over how you're going to manage your farm. I think it's great that everybody has their own different approach to how to make this successful. So I want to make it real clear that we're not going to tell you exactly when to water and not to water, but we will provide you all the tools to be able to make that determination. The protocols for 2011, cropping practice of either corn on corn or corn on wheat, 60 acres minimum of corn, a full quarter mile center pivot is preferable. Center pivot with water applicators approximately 18 inches above ground level, and spacing 60 or 80 inches apart. We're just trying to make sure that you're fully equipped to be able to make this successful. Crop residue management practice utilized, soil thickness of 3 feet. Reason for this is we want to make sure you have plenty of storage capacity to be able to utilize any rainfall and snow that you might receive in the wintertime and also in the summertime. Site readily accessible to read and record data weekly, because you will be provided with people like Leon New or some of the staff of the water district or some other people, interns that we may have to bring in to be able to come in and read moisture blocks, keep track of rainfall, and also if there's any issues with probes or any of the other instruments we're using in your field to identify irrigation scheduling. Producers selected seed from any supplier. We're not company specific. We want to make sure that that's perfectly clear going into this next year. We used one particular company's seed, but it was only because the producers that were involved in the program, board members, were using just one company's seed. It wasn't, we were trying to, we didn't get any help from the seed companies this year as far as plant our seed and put it in and promote it in your project. I just want to make sure you're able to use whatever seed company that you'd like to use. Producers selected planting population. Everybody has their own ideas on population. Mine are completely different than some of the others. I think there will be some parameters if you come out with some huge amount, unless you can show us. Well, I'm not going to even go there because I don't know. So, but we're not going to limit you to, or we're not trying to tell you exactly how you should do things. You know more about your farming practices and how you've done them in the past. But we would like to make sure that we want to be successful and or try to maintain, build on top of what we've done this year. Site equipped with a method to monitor sprinkler location in the field. This will be provided for you. Installing gypsum blocks, again, this will be provided for you. Yield formula used, just some things that we're utilizing. That way we're comparing apples to apples. Will be the yield formula used by the National Corn Growers Association. And producers sincerely concerned about available groundwater with an open mind to learn and manage more. That's kind of, we felt like we were successful this year. We were off to a good start. It's, you know, even though we were that close, it'd been nice to exceed the goal that we were trying to achieve. And next year we're in for a huge challenge with very little winter moisture, like I've said before. And we're looking for some more participants, and like to come back, if Nick will have us back next year to report, give you some more information on what we found out. And I would entertain any questions at this point. Mine, Charles, was based off what we'd done in the past. We felt like we needed to have at least 20,000 plants per acre. And I think our stand was between 22 and 23. I think Phil had some populations in the 14 to 18,000 range, and that's why it's a little bit more difficult to identify exactly what Phil did, because he had some tests within tests, and so until we can get all this data gathered, we're not ready to just jump out there and share it with everybody. But that's what our populations were. I think Phil's or Danny's, of course, he's in the Eastern Panhandle, a lot different than where we are in the Central. And I think his was up to 26, 27,000 in his area. I think they received most generally a little bit more rainfall than we do.
Hey, Harold, how much rainfall did you receive there at that site?
David, you'd think I know that right off the top of my head, but I don't. I think in season 12 and a half inches water. Well, what was so amazing this year is how timely it was. It wasn't, and we had a lot of things going in our favor this year that in my opinion should have really made us bump over there. But it's like when it was like an inch at a time or 2 inches at a time, and it was at different growth stages when we just needed it the most. So we're not expecting that every year, and how we manage that, it's going to be it's going to be interesting. Yes, sir.
Do you feel like you can achieve your goal at using 12 inches a year and still stay within the 40-50 guidelines?
I think we're going to need some help to be able to do it year in and year out. Hopefully we're going to get some help from the different hybrids, the new drought 1s, and I think ultimately the drought 2s. I think there's going to be some years, and maybe this isn't exactly what you're asking, but I think what we're trying to provide is enough information that if a grower goes through the winter like this year and says, okay, we have a full profile to work with, my chances of success at growing 200 bushels and exceeding it are pretty good based off what we've done in the past. Now, to be able to do that year in and year out without some outside help via hybrids or how we irrigate, I've learned a lot this year, and I thought I was new. I didn't claim to be an expert, but I thought I knew quite a bit about timeliness of irrigation, but based off some of the, like David Sloan's work, and he's opened up some stuff now that, lack of a better word, stuff, but that we're going to push it. We're going to be able to see how long we can stretch our irrigation water and what that's going to do to our yields. So there's still a huge learning curve here, and so I think we can. Yes, I think we can make this work to achieve this. I think your other question is whether or not we can achieve that DFC by doing this. Hopefully so. We're going to do everything we can to be able to do so.
Speaking in reference to the board and looking at long term down the road, I know Nebraska and Kansas both, we've really thought it was important to have 12 inches average over several years so that the producer can respond, and this is, again, very hard to predict, but respond to those wet years when you can pull back and then carry over water to a drier year where you have the option to use more. So over a longer period of time, you're able to respond to some of those ups and downs of precipitation that we always think about.
Yes, sir. That has been discussed, and to my understanding, in Nebraska, it's like so many inches in like 5-year period. I'm not sure if it's the same throughout the state of Nebraska, but in certain areas. That is a great concept, and we've discussed that. And at the time, because of the way, and I'm not really one to. I'm going to be very careful what I say here because there's a lot of stuff that I just don't know as far as some of the regulatory stuff that's going on in Texas. But we have, and I'm not sure if it's this way in Nebraska, and and I hope I'm answering your question, but we have a desired future condition to make. And so basically we say, okay, in 40 years, we want to have this much water left. This is what we're using now. How much can we use on a yearly basis? And we know what we're using now. We're able to quantify based off people turning in production reports. We can get a really close number on what we're using on an annual basis. Now, if at some point we're exceeding what we're supposed to be using annually, then we're going to be making cutbacks. So if we have a lot of new development coming in either from the north or the south or wherever, and we're pumping a lot more water, then, and the plan isn't not to just do it drastically right away, but to kind of ease into this thing. We're going to have to back everybody's allocation off. So that's how we're approaching this thing right now. Hopefully we're going to be able to slow this thing down enough that we can leave our allocation at, I think next year we're going to 18 inches, and then we're going to go to 1.75 feet, and then 1.5 feet it will be the next cutback. And then we're going to allow people to bank water to kind of make this transition into the next cutback. But I like that idea of what you described about Nebraska. I think that's a neat way to be doing things. But gosh, it's what I did. One thing I have found out being on a water board, there's 100 different ideas out there and how we're going to get there. And I really appreciate what they've done so far up till now since I've got on the board, because it gets to be pretty overwhelming at times.
What do you think is the best residue management practice? Are you talking about continuous corn, or whether you consider rotation with wheat, or what are you talking about on how to, because residue seems like a real good way to build up the soil moisture.
I'm most familiar with corn behind corn. We have fields that have been in corn for 25 years. We started getting involved in initially with ridge-till in '93, and we have some fields that we haven't plowed since that time. So I'm most familiar with corn residue. It makes it a lot more challenging as far as making your yields, the yields that you used to make prior, but that's what I like. But I've seen a lot of successes, corn behind wheat. I've seen some great things behind wheat. But any crop that makes a lot of residue, grain sorghum, we do grow some grain sorghum. But anything that grows, I like crops that produce leave a lot of residue behind. And corn is what we're most familiar with, but wheat is a great rotational crop also.
Generally been falling a foot a year, 2 foot a year, or in your area? Do you know how much drop you have had?
Charles, where we've noticed it mostly, and all I can, you know, that they take static water levels at a certain time of year, and those things are a little bit misleading. It just depends on if there's people pumping, how many people are pumping, how many aren't. I think they try to do it at a time frame every year at the same time. That way they can get some more consistency. And it's anywhere from, some of the tables I've seen, 2 to 4 feet higher, 5, 6 feet. Where we notice it mostly is in the drawdown in the summer when everybody's pumping. Like this particular well, where our plot was this year, it's been in continuous corn for 12 years. We purchased that property. When we purchased that property, we drilled a well at the pivot. It was producing 750 gallons. It's dropped off 60% from that time period. And especially in that Moore County, Hartley County area, we're seeing some drastic, for lack of better words, and that's to scare people, really, declines. And I say declines, it's like at the beginning of the season, first week or two, you're pumping the amount of water that you did the year before, but it drops off a lot more quickly, but it will sustain the year. But there's just a lot more people pumping, and that it's like the aquifer will take care of itself, and it's only going to release so much, and that's it. So we're already there as far as how much water. You know, we talk about limitations. Well, that's our limitation. The aquifer only is going to give up so much water.